What if the worst day in history was not actually the worst day? What if the day that looked like the end was the day that made every other ending impossible? What if the silence after the cross was not the silence of defeat, but the silence before something that had never happened before and has never happened since? 3 days. That is all it took. 3 days between the death of the only person who had ever lived without sin and the moment that split history in two, more completely than any event before or after it. This is not a story about a great teacher who inspired his followers so deeply that they kept his memory alive. This is not a story about a metaphor for hope or a symbol of renewal. This is a story about a body that was dead, and a tomb that was sealed, and a stone that was rolled away. And if it is true, it changes everything. Not some things, everything. To understand what the resurrection means, you have to understand what came before it. Jesus of Nazareth had spent 3 years doing things that had no natural explanation. He had healed people that medicine could not heal. He had fed thousands with food that should not have been enough. He had calmed a storm with words. He had raised a man named Lazarus from the dead after 4 days in the tomb, in front of witnesses, in broad daylight, with no possibility of mistake. He had made claims that left no room for comfortable middle ground. Before Abraham was, I am. I and the Father are one. I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. These were not the claims of a moral teacher offering good advice. They were the claims of someone who believed he was God in human form. And the religious leaders of Jerusalem understood exactly what he was claiming. It was why they wanted him dead. He had entered Jerusalem on a donkey to the sound of crowds waving palm branches and shouting Hosanna. He had cleansed the temple. He had taught in the courts every day while the chief priests and the teachers of the law looked for a way to kill him. And then Judas, one of his 12 closest followers, went to them and offered to hand Jesus over for 30 pieces of silver. The last night began in an upper room. Jesus ate the Passover meal with his disciples. He took bread and broke it and said, "This is my body given for you." He took the cup and said, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood, which is poured out for you." He told them one of them would betray him. He washed their feet. He told them he was going away, and that where he was going they could not follow now, but would follow later. He told them not to let their hearts be troubled, and then he led them out to a garden called Gethsemane on the slope of the Mount of Olives. In the garden, Jesus went a little farther from his disciples and fell to the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will." He prayed this 3 times. And each time he returned to his disciples and found them sleeping. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. The weight of what was coming was not something Jesus was walking toward with easy confidence. He was in such anguish that his sweat was like drops of blood falling to the ground. The one who had raised Lazarus from the dead, the one who had walked on water, the one who had said, "I am the resurrection and the life," was on his face in a garden asking if there was another way. There was not another way. And Jesus knew it. And he got up from the ground and walked back to his disciples and said, "Rise, let us go. Here it comes my betrayer." Judas arrived with a crowd carrying swords and the clubs, sent by the chief priests and the elders. He had arranged a signal. "The one I kiss is the man. Arrest him." He went directly to Jesus and said, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kissed him. Jesus said, "Do what you came for." The crowd stepped forward and seized him. One of his disciples drew a sword and cut off the ear of the high priest's servant. Jesus told him to put the sword away. Then he healed the ear of the man who had come to arrest him. All the disciples deserted him and fled. Jesus was taken to the high priest. The council was assembled. Witnesses were brought forward. False testimony was given. The high priest asked Jesus directly if he was the Messiah, the Son of God. Jesus said, "You have said so. But I say to all of you, from now on you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven." The high priest tore his clothes. He said the words that would seal the verdict. "He has spoken blasphemy. What do you think? He is worthy of death." They spat in his face. They struck him with their fists. They mocked him. Peter had followed at a distance to the courtyard of the high priest's house. 3 times that night, people recognized him as a follower of Jesus. 3 times he denied it. On the 3rd denial, the rooster crowed, and Peter remembered what Jesus had said to him earlier that night. "Before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times." He went outside and wept bitterly. When morning came, Jesus was taken to Pilate, the Roman governor. Pilate examined him and found no basis for a charge against him. He tried to release him. The custom at Passover was to release one prisoner chosen by the crowd. He offered them a choice between Jesus and a man named Barabbas, a notorious prisoner. The chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas. "What shall I do then with Jesus, who is called the Messiah?" "Crucify him." "Why? What crime has he committed?" But they shouted all the louder, "Crucify him!" Pilate took water and washed his hands in front of the crowd. "I am innocent of this man's blood. This is your responsibility." And he had Jesus flogged and handed him over to be crucified. The soldiers took Jesus. They stripped him. They put a scarlet robe on him. They twisted together a crown of thorns and set it on his head. They put a staff in his right hand. They knelt in front of him and mocked him. "Hail, King of the Jews!" They spat on him. They struck him on the head again and again with the staff. Then they led him out to crucify him. He carried his cross through the streets of Jerusalem. He had been awake all night. He had been beaten. He had been flogged. At some point along the way, he could no longer carry it. A man named Simon was forced to carry it for him the rest of the way. They came to a place called Golgotha, the place of the skull, and there they crucified him, between 2 criminals, one on his right and one on his left. The people who passed by hurled insults at him, shaking their heads. "You who are going to destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself. Come down from the cross if you are the Son of God." The chief priests and teachers of the law mocked him. "He saved others, but he cannot save himself. Let him come down now from the cross and we will believe in him." One of the criminals hanging beside him joined the mockery. "Are you not the Messiah? Save yourself and us." But the other criminal rebuked him. "Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence? We are punished justly, for we are getting what our deeds deserve. But this man has done nothing wrong." Then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And Jesus said to him, "Truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise." From the 6th hour, darkness came over all the land until the 9th hour. 3 hours of darkness in the middle of the day. And at about the 9th hour, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Later, knowing that everything was now complete, he said, "I am thirsty." They soaked a sponge in wine vinegar, put it on a staff, and lifted it to his lips. When he had received the drink, Jesus said, "It is finished," and he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in 2 from top to bottom. The earth shook. The rocks split. The tombs broke open. A Roman centurion standing at the foot of the cross, who had watched everything, said, "Surely he was the Son of God." Joseph of Arimathea, a rich man who had been a secret disciple of Jesus, went to Pilate and asked for the body. Pilate gave his permission. Joseph took the body, wrapped it in clean linen, and placed it in his own new tomb that he had cut out of the rock. He rolled a large stone in front of the entrance to the tomb. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were sitting there opposite the tomb. The next day, the chief priests and the Pharisees went to Pilate and told him they remembered that the deceiver had said while he was still alive that after 3 days he would rise again. They asked for the tomb to be made secure so the disciples could not come and steal the body and tell the people though he had risen from the dead. Pilate said, "Take a guard. Go. Make the tomb as secure as you know how." They went and made the tomb secure by putting a seal on the stone and posting a guard. Now consider what Saturday looked like. The disciples were scattered. Peter was somewhere weeping over his denial. The others had fled. The women who had followed Jesus from Galilee were sitting at a distance, watching. The man they had followed for 3 years was dead. The one who had said, "I am the resurrection and the life," was in a sealed tomb with a Roman guard posted outside. Everything they had believed, everything they had left their homes and their livelihoods for, everything they had staked their futures on, was behind a stone. Saturday is the day the Bible says almost nothing about. It is the day of silence. The day when the story seemed to have ended in the worst possible way. The day when the disciples did not yet know that the silence was not the silence of ending, but the silence of something being prepared. There are Saturdays in every life. Days between the death of what you believed and the arrival of what you could not yet see. Days when the tomb is sealed and the guard is posted and the stone looks immovable. The disciples did not know what Sunday was going to look like. They could not see past the stone. Neither can we most of the time. After the Sabbath, at dawn on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to look at the tomb. There was a violent earthquake. An angel of the Lord came down from heaven, and going to the tomb rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were white as snow. The guards were so afraid of him that they shook and became like dead men. The angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid, for I know that you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He is not here. He has risen just as he said. Come and see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples. He has risen from the dead and is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him." So the women hurried away from the tomb, afraid yet filled with joy, and ran to tell his disciples. Suddenly Jesus met them. "Greetings," he said. They came to him, clasped his feet, and worshipped him. "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me." The guards went into the city and reported to the chief priests everything that had happened. The chief priests assembled with the elders and devised a plan. They gave the soldiers a large sum of money and told them to say that the disciples had come during the night and stolen the body while they were asleep. This story has been widely circulated ever since. But there is a problem with it. Dead men do not organize cover-ups. Dead men do not appear to their followers over a period of 40 days in multiple locations in front of groups of people. Dead men do not appear to 500 people at one time, as Paul would later record. Dead men do not transform a group of terrified disciples who had scattered at the first sign of danger into people who would spend the rest of their lives traveling the known world, telling everyone that Jesus had risen from the dead, and who would die for that claim rather than deny it. People do not die for things they know to be lies. Something happened on that Sunday morning. Something that could not be explained by theft or hallucination or wishful thinking. Something that turned the worst day in the history of the world into the pivotal event of all human history. He is not here. He has risen. The appearances continued. Mary Magdalene saw him in the garden and thought he was the gardener until he spoke her name. 2 disciples on the road to Emmaus walked with a stranger for hours and did not recognize him until he broke bread with them. And then he vanished. Peter was restored by the Sea of Galilee over a breakfast of fish cooked on a charcoal fire. Thomas, who had doubted, was invited to touch the wounds in his hands and his side. 40 days after the resurrection, Jesus led his disciples out to the vicinity of Bethany. He lifted up his hands and blessed them, and while he was blessing them, he left them. He left them and was taken up into heaven. They worshipped him and returned to Jerusalem with great joy. And they stayed continually at the temple, praising God. 10 days later, the Holy Spirit came, and the world has never been the same. So what does this story mean for us today? The first lesson is this: it is finished means it is finished. The last words of Jesus on the cross were not a cry of defeat. They were a declaration of completion. The word used in the original language was a word that accountants used when a debt had been fully paid in full. Nothing remaining, nothing outstanding, nothing left to settle. Every sin you have ever committed, every failure, every shameful thing, every moment you reached for something that was not yours or turned away from something you were supposed to do or said something that cannot be unsaid. It is finished. The debt has been paid. Not partially. Not with a balance remaining that your good behavior will eventually have to cover. Completely. Finally. Once. The resurrection is the proof that the payment was accepted. God did not leave Jesus in the tomb. The silence of Saturday ended on Sunday morning, and the ending of that silence is the loudest possible statement that what was accomplished on the cross was enough. The second lesson is this: Sunday always follows Saturday. Not on your timeline. Not necessarily when you expect it or need it. But the pattern of death and resurrection that runs through the story of Jesus runs through the stories of everyone who follows him. The things that die are not always the end. The sealed tombs are not always permanent. The stones that look immovable sometimes roll away. Whatever Saturday you are sitting in right now, whatever has died that you did not think could die, whatever door has closed that you built your life around, whatever version of Saturday's silence you are living inside. The disciples did not know what Sunday looked like from Saturday. They could not see past the stone. But Sunday came anyway. The third lesson is this: he rose bodily, and that means your body matters. The resurrection was not a spiritual idea. It was a physical event. The tomb was empty. The grave clothes were there. Jesus ate fish with his disciples after he rose. Thomas touched his wounds. The resurrection of Jesus was not the survival of his memory or the continuation of his influence. It was the raising of his body from the dead. This matters because it means the physical world is not something to be escaped. It is something to be redeemed, the creation that God called good in the beginning. The dust he formed into a man and breathed life into is not something God has abandoned. The resurrection of Jesus is the first event in the resurrection of everything, the beginning of the new creation, the down payment on a future that the book of Revelation describes as a new heaven and a new earth. Your body matters. The physical world matters. What happens in time and space and history matters. Because God entered time and space and history and did not simply pass through it, he redeemed it from the inside. And the fourth lesson is the one everything else has been pointing toward. The resurrection of Jesus is not primarily a story about what happened 2,000 years ago. It is a claim about what is happening now and what will happen in the future. He is not here. He is risen, and he is of us. Not in memory, not in metaphor. Actually, physically, bodily alive at the right hand of God the Father. Which means that the same one who said, "Do not let your hearts be troubled," is still saying it. The same one who said, "I am the resurrection and the life," is still the resurrection and the life. The same one who met Mary in the garden and spoke her name knows your name. The disciples came to the tomb that Sunday morning to perform the last rites for someone who was dead. They left as witnesses to something that had no category in their previous understanding of the world. Something that required an entirely new way of thinking about what was possible. Whatever category you have put Jesus in: teacher, historical figure, moral example, good man who died for his beliefs. The empty tomb requires you to add one more possibility: that he is exactly who he said he was. That the silence of Saturday ended. That death was not the last word. That he is risen. And that the question he is still asking is the same question he asked Mary in the garden when she turned and saw him and did not recognize him. He said, "Who are you looking for?" He is still asking. Based on Matthew 26-28, Mark 14-16, Luke 22-24, John 13-21, 1 Corinthians 15.